Jacob's calling from the UK. Is going to catch up with thoughts on energy not being destroyed and is friends with you. So, Jacob, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jacob.
Excellent. Yeah. Hello, Paul. How are you, mate? All right.
I'm all right. Matt, you may not remember, but we spoke with Jacob in another life on another show, and spoke about resurrection claims and things. So,
Ooh.
Yeah,
and Gary Habermas didn't like it.
Would that be the Atheist Experience show that's still posting old clips of me in order to pay their employees?
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
How you doing, Jacob?
Yeah, really good, thank you. And incidentally, Paul, I'm not sure if you remember, but they had Sean McDowell, Gary Habermas, and Mike McCona did a whole hour-long.
I remember it well. They dissected our call. Yes, poorly.
Without insulting us. Anyway, sorry.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was just wondering what you guys think about energy can't be destroyed or created, which is Einstein's. Was it Einstein's theory?
No.
And okay, sorry. Yeah. I'm not sure whose theory that was. That energy can't be destroyed or created.
Right.
Would that prove some people correct when they say that I'm just going to exist in some other form after I die, conscious or unconscious? Sorry, I know it's a big question. I just see what you thought about that.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Well, all I was going to say was, for me, the first law of thermodynamics actually is a great argument for not having a creator, because as far as we know, matter and energy can't be created. There never can have been a nothing state, right? If that first law of thermodynamics holds. So for me, I love that law as it relates to non-creation of the cosmos. Is your question, is it at energy not being created or destroyed? Energy in the first law of thermodynamics absolutely gets transformed, though, right? Like that's part of what that thermodynamic law is, that energy can convert to matter. Matter can be back to energy. Like you burn the wood, and the potential energy, in the wood, is now actualized. So thermodynamics definitely talks about energy transforming from one thing to another. So if you want to say that we died, I don't think this is what you want to say. But if you want to say that when we die, the energy that is stored in our physical body obviously goes to become nutrients for other things, and is released in various ways. Of course, I don't see why that would translate to our consciousness, right? Like, just because if I was to smash my hard drive, that doesn't mean in any meaningful way that the data lives on, even though the molecules still exist.
Yeah, when it comes to
Is
the
that
laws of when it comes to the laws
Go
of
ahead, Matt.
thermodynamics, they apply to a closed system to begin with. And when it says that matter and energy can't be created or destroyed, they can only transition. You might just look at the entirety of reality as matter and energy in patterns. And so when I die, I have no reason to think that my consciousness persists, and the matter and energy that are currently labeled me dissipate, and the pattern is no longer there. It's the pattern of this collection of matter and energy that is me, and the definition of that pattern, this is Matt, the meat sack, changes moment to moment because I don't have the same atoms in me that I had when I started this sentence. And so it's just a pattern collection. To suggest that something essentially me in any meaningful sense persists after I'm dead is, I mean, you wouldn't even need the laws of thermodynamics, because that's not what they say. And what people are asserting is almost obviously definitely false, because we can annihilate patterns, and we know those things don't exist anymore in that pattern anyway.
Yeah. That's a good point. So I know I probably sound a bit like a kindergarten telling you, asking you about these things. I just got no. It was just the thing that was presented to me, because a lot of people would say to me, "Oh, you live in a house now because I've just recently moved house, and it's got a bad history. This house, and make sure there's no ghosts. And I'm not going to lie to you, this sounds really bad, but that did frighten me for a good couple of days. Um, and then people said, yeah, because the energy doesn't change. Well, the energy does change, but the energy is still there. And I'm like, and then you sit in your room and it's all dark, and you think, oh my, you know. So,
Well, if you think about it, do you think whoever lived there before farted at some point while they lived there?
yeah, but
Do you,
yeah,
do you
yeah,
still
of course.
do you still smell it? Probably not.
No, no,
So
no.
yeah, and by the way, I'm not aware of. I mean, I understand why the notion of ghosts might terrify some people or disturb some people, but I'm unaware of any evidence that any such thing is real or realistic. But I will say, out of everything else, the concept of a soul is, I have said, and I love this phrase, so I'll say it over and over again, the most obviously dead concept in all of theology, because everything that that theological positions attribute to a soul is either a demonstrable function of a brain or is not demonstrably real. And because my brain can be altered, changing every aspect, physical damage to my brain and physical changes to my brain will change my memory, my personality, my identity, everything. All of the things that make me me are malleable. And none of them have any justification for perceiving them to persist beyond the death of my brain. And so, what room is left for a ghost?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a fair point. It's yeah, because I mean, because obviously they would say, like, the molecules and the particles in your brain. What's the evidence that those things exist in the same form outside of the body, sort of thing? So some people will talk about out of body experiences, or they once saw a figure run across their room or something. And I really don't know how to counter those arguments, because I can't say to them, oh no, you didn't see something run across the room, because I'm not there and I wasn't there. So it,
But even if you were
yeah,
them and were there, there's it. So when people tell me I saw a ghost or I was abducted by aliens, or when my mom tells me she saw a demon on my grandfather's shoulder and she saw the demon of alcoholism sitting on my grandfather's shoulder, and I'm like, I believe that those people experienced something, and I believe that they are doing their best to describe that experience as honestly as possible. Although I know for a fact that they are prone to embellishing, as we all are, but I don't believe that their description is correct. Like, I don't know how my mom determined that what she saw was a demon, and specifically the demon of alcoholism, but how did she determine whether it was actually a demon versus some psychological projection and aberration from her own trauma from living under an alcoholic?
yeah, yeah. Well, it's like it's similar to like post bereavement hallucinations, where somebody thinks they've seen their dead loved one, but in reality it was a hallucination, sort of thing. Do you think that's similar sort of thing as well?
I
Well,
think that's a
I'm not
separate
saying,
phenomenon, but it all goes under the category of misattributing things, right? Like we we all misattribute, right? We want to either personify something. We look at the clouds. We look at the clouds and we see bunnies. Well, that's not post bereavement hallucination, but it is a form of like our brain fooling ourselves, right? About pareidolia, right? About seeing
yeah,
something that isn't there. So it's just one of those things. This broad category of, can we be mistaken, right?
yes.
And almost always the answer is, well, yeah, I guess I could have been mistaken.
But my thing is, and the way you phrased it um, is interesting, Jacob, because it's like, I hear this all the time and it comes up in every call. Or, well, not every call. That's an exaggeration. It comes up in many, many calls in some form. And that is, people fail to see the difference between I am not convinced of X and I am convinced of not X. So there's a difference. And I like to say, I am not convinced you are guilty is not the same as saying, I am convinced you are innocent. And so when I say to somebody, I'm not convinced that you're guilty, in their head, they think, oh, he thinks they're innocent. And so when I say I'm not convinced a God exists, people often say, oh, he's convinced no God exists. We extend that because we think in a very particular binary when we shouldn't. And so when it comes to somebody told me they saw a ghost, I'm not saying the correct explanation is that you suffered a psychological break. I have no idea. For all I know, they did see a ghost. I'm just saying I don't have reason to conclude that it was a ghost. And when I asked them to tell me why they concluded it was a ghost, to date, nobody has ever presented a valid and sound argument supported by evidence for concluding it's a ghost. It was always, well, it looked like a ghost. What the hell does a ghost look like? How do you know what a ghost looked? Well, it seemed like a ghost. Well, what else could it be? All of those are fallacious arguments, right down to what else could it be? The argument from incredulity. We don't have a better explanation, so I'm just going to go with this one. When the right answer is I don't know. And that leaves it open to, hey, if there are ghosts, we can believe that, and we should believe that just as soon as the ghost claim is justified. But until it's justified, it would be a huge mistake. It would be like convicting the wrong person of murder. It would be like determining the butler did it and sentencing him to life in prison just because you couldn't find a better suspect.
Yeah. No, that's like, yeah. It's like saying, for example, it's like what you alluded to earlier. It's like, it's like, I could say, am I convinced? I mean, I hope it's true, but I mean, am I convinced that Paul has £1 million in the bank? Well, no, I'm not convinced, but that doesn't mean that I'm convinced that he doesn't. So, um, and yeah, so it's an interesting analogy there. It's kind of like saying to somebody, like you said, it's like you're the most likely suspect, but we still haven't got 100% evidence, so but we're going to go with it anyway, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's
So
like picking up somebody who has gang tattoos and deporting them to El Salvador, and despite a judge's order to the contrary, when they are not the person that you think they are, and now you're supposed to bring them back. It's kind of like
mm,
that. There's a reason why
Hmm.
we have due process in law. There's a reason why we study epistemology to set good standards of evidence. And that's because generally we understand better for one guilty person to go free or for 1,000 guilty people to go free than for one innocent person to go to jail. And generally speaking, while those numbers may not completely line up, it is better for me to exclude some potentially true things that don't have strong evidentiary support than it is to believe the false things that I would also have to believe to include those. My standards of evidence need to be high enough to have as many true things and as few false things make it through.
yeah, yeah,
Sweet.
brilliant, excellent. Well, that's answered the question. So I really appreciate your time. So thank you very much. It's good to catch up.
Yep.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Jacob.
Jacob. Thanks for calling.